Welcome everyone back to the user acquisition zone at App Promotion Summit Berlin 2021 online edition. So we are bringing you a very interesting topic right now. We're going to be talking about the future. We're going to be talking about how to make sense of post iOS 15 data. Very excited for this talk. I'm going to hand you over now to Mi-Han Wang from GrowForStack. Please give her a big App Promotion Summit Berlin 2021 online edition user acquisition zone. Welcome to the virtual stage.
Yeah, so hello everyone. Thanks for joining the call today. I hope everyone's doing all right today. The talk today is focusing on the UA analysis of future, how to make sense of the post iOS 15. And then, so first of all, we want to give you a agenda of what we'll be discussing today. So today is more like a discussion forum, like what we observe between the difference between the life before all this iOS changes and how the life is now, like for people who work in marketing analytics. So first of all, let's meet Jack. And first of all, let me introduce a bit about the context of why we're starting with the name Jack. So essentially, like GrowForStack is like a service where like launched by Tangent, which is an attribution firm, and also like Game Analytics. So GrowForStack is like working on doing a lot of ETL work and also a lot of data customization reporting tool for the users. And then that's why we end up like wanting to give the talk of today. So let's jump back to like meet Jack. So why do we come up with such a figure, Jack? And then why do we even mention this guy in our talk? It's because we feel like Jack is a person we all know. So Jack is someone like who work in user acquisition and someone who has a lot of experience in app promotion, and then someone who decides everything for marketing and advertising strategy within the company. So until like last year, this Jack person, like he knew how to grow apps. Basically, everything is relatively straightforward. And for me personally, it was also much more straightforward because essentially everyone will have IDFA. You have this user identifier that you can do lots of magical things about. You can even predict the LTV on user level because actually we have the ID. So before 2020, everything is straightforward and then easy to observe. And then we also see like, yeah, the trend is going up, like of how much of money people are spending, because essentially this is, of course, it's not easy, but there are so many ways one can optimize how to run UA campaign. So besides on the user level, one can also do a lot of a cool thing on user level by clustering user into different groups. So you can build a lot of lookalike campaign. So essentially more money is being stored into user acquisition because the rollout is measurable and then you can actually observe the growth. So, but unfortunately, the news is that, yeah, so there is no more IDFA, there's no more this user identifier exists or not exist, but just like now we have a privacy thing and then one needs to ask a user whether something someone wants to be tracked or not. And then it's essentially as terrifying as for Jack actually, and also as for me and also for people who work in the space. So now this is the terrifying screen that everyone who run UA is not so happy to look at. I don't know, maybe some people are really happy to look at. But basically now as a user, you'll be prompted into this pop-out asking like whether you like to be tracked or not. So here is a pause, we want to quickly introduce again what is GrowForStack. And then I'm here today, Meihan, and then I'm working on this GrowForStack product. And as previously mentioned, it's a combined product between Game Analytics and Tangent. And for people who don't know about Game Analytics is a platform and tool where you can have all the in-depth in-game analytics and also metrics. Tangent is an attribution firm and product. We have like SDK and also a data warehouse. And then this is a like common product we built together. It's called GrowForStack. Roman was with me last week on our in-person conference, at Promotion Summit in-person conference last week. But today it would just be me. And then to like clarify a bit more is like what exactly is this GrowForStack and why is most of the common phases between GrowForStack and Tangent are kind of the same is because essentially we see lots of people when they run UA or like when they're doing marketing analytics, they kind of need a solution where they can aggregate and also popping all the data together. So just think of it as sometimes you might have data you want from different sources, and then you might not have all the data engineering resources or time to figure out how to merge and combine all the data. And then that's exactly why we create GrowForStack, because we want to solve this bottleneck and then democratize how different pieces of data lying everywhere and it's annoying. We want to solve this problem. So that's the background of it. So this is basically like visualizing what I kind of described earlier. So essentially you have sources you want to pull, you have destination you want to dump, and you have analysis you want to do. So it's a lot of nitty gritty tiny pieces all over. So one of the example could be like, actually you're interested in knowing like what your competitors apps have, what kind of SDK have your competitors integrated in their SDK. So there are some vendors providing this app analytics information, for example, Sensor Tower or 42 Matters. There are a lot of providers for this segment, but you want to combine this information with your in-house analytics like data warehouse. So you also have your other metrics of other competitors game or app. So essentially you want to dump it in your in-house Snowflake or AWS or BigQuery. So the idea is like sometimes it just takes a lot of time to choose a source and dump it at somewhere and do the analysis. And essentially we build this product for you can kind of do drag and drop. You choose a source where I want to choose. I want data from AppLovin, I want data from Iron Source, and where I want to dump it in Snowflake, I want to dump it in our internal AWS Redshift or anywhere you want. So here is take advantage of 20x's use case or build your own. So this is additional of besides a drag and drop, where is a source, where is a destination. What else do we provide is actually kind of like a training. In a way, it's also a knowledge sharing pages. So we figure like a lot of times how people do things in UA and monetization is kind of like a closed wall. Is that a word? Just like it's kind of like not a common knowledge, and we think it actually helps if like people share knowledge of how they do things. Obviously, because it also like gets people to have new ideas from each other and also help each other grow in this like ambiguous and difficult space in a way. So I'll layer a lot of contents for free. So if anyone is interested, feel free to browse them and let us know if you need any help. So enough of marketing on GrowForStack. Let's go back to Jack. So back in the day, Jack Life has described is relatively easy. You have the breakdown of app, channel, campaign, creative, country, and source app. And personally, I think it's awesome. Like you have everything and then you can optimize on the source app LTV, you can build a bidding according to this. Sorry, sometimes I misspell or mispronounce something. Like I'm still trying to improve my English. But in any way, just like before the changes, everything's really straightforward, and then you can just rely on MMP of gathering all your information. So as what we see, it's all MMP's job or like their responsibility to gather all this information, and then it's easier to actually build things on top of it. So with the changes of latest iOS development, life has become more complicated. So here is a snapshot of what has changes, what have not. So I think most crucial things we have observed is like once people don't have the country breakdown, it's kind of like really difficult to get a grasp of what is going on. So that's definitely one of the key changes that we observe. And then also like find it slightly disturbing. Like there is no more country group by, like there's no more country split metrics. And then there are other metrics where you can see like what is available, what is not. So the slides will be shared after the talk. So in case you want to study what is available, what is not. And then also like there are no real-time events in this latest iOS SKAd network. So in a way, like Apple designed it in a way that there are two types of timers. One is a 24 install timers where you can reset multiple times, but every time when it resets, it's 24 hours. And there are another types of timers, which is not defined. It's between 0 to 24 hours, but once you start, you cannot reset, but you can update the conversion value. And we'll dig into that later with the conversion value. And then there is another aspect for SKAd network data that we get asked frequently. So a lot of time, like you'll see a lot of conversion values are all null. So usually when it happens, there could be two reasons. One is actually the most common one is like conversion values are not available. And what does that mean? That actually means like when your install are not like a lot, let's say below 100, usually they will mark everything as null because essentially it will be too easy to pinpoint the information of the user if you have so little install. And another reason, which is also kind of common, is like the publisher source is not available. It can also be like sometimes people didn't call the function, the update conversion value. So actually the conversion value was never updated. So this is something like a lot of time people just forget. So if you ever think like you have way too many null than you expected, feel free to check out the documentation page, or you can just shoot me or our team an email. We are happy to help you to see whether any of the integration part is actually not done properly. But this is one of the key things that annoy people with this SKAd network. And then, so how does the SKAd network attribution work in a nutshell? So in a way, like you need to set up this conversion value. Conversion value essentially is a 64. You can set up 64 types of conversion value, but the representation is binary, which is something we'll go deeper later. And then once you set up the conversion value, the Apple will pass the SKAd network to the N network, and then it will be passed by to the MMP server. So this is kind of like a simplified version of how the whole thing works, but it gives you an idea of like why do you need to set up conversion value, and then how does the flow work. So, but that was what is for iOS 14, and now is like we're gonna jump into what is new for iOS 15. And like there are actually some good news. So the most crucial part here, I personally think, and also like I observe some people observe and share, is like actually now you can directly get this information from Apple. So actually, to be honest, you don't actually need to get it, for example, from us, like from either GrowForStack or from Tangent. You can actually get it from your own. So all you need is actually directly call Apple. So there's some setup needs to be done to call a function to get the data, but it's doable. The only thing is like it takes some time because once you get the data, you call API, you need to parse the data, and then you need to make it kind of like human readable table and then visualize it. But in a way, it's actually personally, I think it's a great news. Like it's democratizing the data, and then actually you as a user, you deserve to like have the data like without any kinds of interruption. If you want, just call it Apple, and then you have the data. Again, it takes some time and energy to set it up, but this data engineering part is can be solved, and then you'll have the postback um, on your side, and then later we'll also go deeper to some details of that. So summary of what we just talked for so far is like we talk about how UA was before the iOS 14, and then like how is the UA now, or how is the UA between iOS 14 and 15, and how is the UA now. And then now I need to share other tabs of the next topic is like how to make sense of iOS 15 data and how to build prototype. So I need to bear me for 30 seconds. I need to change the tab. So here you can see that this is what the data you'll get if you call Apple API. So essentially, you'll get this like slightly ugly but doable data look like this. Essentially, there are some columns that I added here, and we'll walk through how to do this like quite straightforward on your end. So I marked the ones I added so that we can easily see what is coming with the Apple data and what is not, and then what easy thing you can do to make it work. Sorry, I'm not the best Google Sheet wizard, but this is what it is. So besides a yellow column, the other columns are what you will get directly from Apple, or you can get it from us wherever you want. So essentially, when you have this raw data on your Google Sheet or anywhere, you can also like parse the data directly in your BigQuery or like Redshift. But here we just want to show an easy way how this can be done with absolute zero investment, or like you don't need to sign up with any provider in any sense. So Google Sheet is free. So you can just dump your data here, and then all you have to do is to build a simple feed lookup. So here is a map tab, and where we just map the conversion value. So essentially, there are some ways to decide on the conversion value. I can share something. So wait me for 30 seconds. I need to change tabs again. So as you can see here, I hope you guys can see, conversion value can be relatively complicated. So if you want, essentially you can set up for every single conversion value, but it's not required. So if you want to go down that route, it's also recommended, but probably some more like brainstorming of what makes sense need to be done. But here I just want to share like this is also what we discussed with the client, what can be done. Like if you want to set up every single value you can think of, this is one way to go about. And one thing to be noted is like, sorry, kind of lost my voice. One thing to be noted is like conversion value will be updated, right? So you need to set it as a sequence where it makes the sense for the level. So because the conversion value can only be updated, they cannot go downward. So it can only be 1 updated to 2, 2 updated to 3, 3 updated to 4, so on and so forth. So essentially, you need to set it in an upward trend. So the binary can only go upward in a updated word. I hope that makes it clear. But essentially, all I'm trying to say is that you can set up a conversion value where the value actually goes down again, or the level actually goes down again, because it won't work in the sense that user cannot buy like already buy $5 and then in another couple hours updated being buying $1. Like it needs to be kind of aggregated in a sense in terms of levels and then the purchases. So once you have the mapping, you actually can parse them back in the sheet. And then here, we don't want to disclose what network is what network, so I just use a anonymized name. But if you're interested in find out, we can find out together. But here, just want to protect the network and also like don't make it so weird, like trying to identify who is who. And then for the source, this is actually the part that is interesting. Personally, I think it's interesting. Is like. So when the data you get directly from Apple, actually the source is raw, which means this data is again democratized in a completely raw sense. In a way, it's actually the app ID. So personally, I think it's a pretty damn cool thing. Let me share it with you again. So what you can do when you receive the raw data is you just go to the Apple Store and then you just do what I like to do is check out the apps. Yeah, so essentially before iOS 15, this data is not always democratized. Now with the iOS 15, you get this data directly, either from MP, from you directly get it yourself. But what is cool is like now you have full visibility of which source is which source. So there is no one in the middle can like not share this information with you. And this is also what we're gonna dig deeper later. So what can you do with this raw data? Essentially, we usually recommend people to start building it in Google Data Studio. And then the reason why is because Google Data Studio is a completely free tool. And also, again, later, all the things will be shared. So if you want the dashboard or you are interested in a spreadsheet or even a site, everything will be shared. So essentially, how to build a dashboard on Google Data Studio in 1 minute that I'll show very quickly is like when you try to build a dashboard on Google Data Studio, first of all, you can add a page and then you can add a data source. And this is a cool part because first of all, Google Data Studio is free. It might not be the most sophisticated BI tool to use, and nor is it the fastest or the most complex or professional one. But personally, I think it's really good because it's like first of all free, and then second of all, it's like there's so many pre-built connector. So let's say all your data lives in Google Sheet. To be honest, I see some people doing really amazing like even visualization in Google Sheets or everything done in Google Sheet. That's also like, I think it's just amazing. And then, but there are also a lot of people have all their data dumping Redshift. But essentially, all you have to do is like click on connect, and then you can connect all your sources, and then it will be you can directly like query and then decide on which table you want to utilize, which table you want to visualize. But for Google, Google Sheet is even more straightforward because all you have to do is click, and then you connect all the sheet that you own, and then you can start building. So let's jump back to the raw data visualization. So we actually do it in a relatively, actually really simple way. It's like, first of all, we look like a daily development. So you can actually see like it's somewhat interesting because usually one will assume like the install always correlates with the every other metric, but you can see from the graph it's not the case always. But this is just a general thing. Like usually it's good to have the timeline to observe. Second thing is actually to look into for network performance. So sometimes let's say you have certain things that you're more interested about than others. So in this sense, it can be like, actually you don't care about any other metrics. You only care about the conversion value purchase bigger than 5. So what can do is like to observe the relationship between the network. So let's say if the network C here have such a higher purchase bigger than 5 conversion value, how does this affect other network? Let's say other network of network A and network B. Do they cannibalize each other? Do they actually take down the purchase bigger than 5 conversion value from each other? Or do they actually help each other to grow? So some experiment can be set up here to run the campaign parallel, and then, but of course, the proper experiment needs to be set up in terms of the size of campaign and so on. But this is what we recommend to do. So essentially, you can see like for certain, here you can choose which one you're interested. So let's say we're only interested in people who purchase more than $5. We can see how it develops. Let's say this is our ultimate metrics. We only care about this conversion value. We can see actually how it works against each other, whether the networks works together or it's more like people cannibalizing each other. So some experiment needs to be done again, because here we plot everything to 100, but the relative value is different. But here is just an example. And one thing I forgot to mention in the beginning is like there is always an install. So in the conversion value word, the 0 always represent install. So you cannot set the starting point. The starting point 0 will always be installed like per Apple like design. And next thing we recommend people to look at is actually the source app. So now we are in this era where the source app will be actually shared, and then it will never be masked or like encrypt. So you can actually see how does a source works for you. And in this sense, we see like, oh, actually, for our app, like the Zen as a source works the best. And then actually Zen in a way in the previous like example, we can see we can look up the source ID to check which app it is. And then in this case, this Zen app is actually a meditation app called Calm. So we know like actually like this Calm as a source works pretty well. And then one can set up more like UA strategy based on this. But of course, more experiment needs to be done. Another view is to plot everything into 100 as also for the ad network. And the reason why we think it's also important to observe everything at 100 bar is because here you can observe that the social as a source, as previously we Google App Store is like social equals to TikTok as a source app. So we can see like that even though TikTok generate much less conversion value and install for this app, but in a way, when you plot it into 100, you can see actually out of all this conversion value, the trial starts takes a much bigger part than all the other source. So that also gives you some hint, like maybe the quality of the user coming from this TikTok app or the social app is actually quite different from the other apps. And the last one is personally, I'm really happy to dig deep into this. If anyone wants to follow up or do some research together, is actually do the ad network and source analysis. So essentially by plotting every ad network. So of course, there are also some like experiment needs to be done here because essentially you don't spend the same money on every network. So that's just presumably like assume we just decide like all the network we just plot it into 100 and all their preset setup is the same. So we regard like first of all just temporarily regard the fact that we don't spend the same money on them. We can actually see like how do they perform in terms of different source. So let's say here, the source that we care the most about is trial starts, not source, the conversion value we care the most is about trial starts. We can see that, oh, actually, network C has a much interesting or different distribution in terms of different source compared to network A, B, D, and E. That being said is like for network C, like out of all the conversion values they have for trial starts, this specific trial starts, most of them coming from a Zen app. So one can derive from previous finding is to say, okay, now I know the source for from some source, user quality is different. But now I can know like whether certain networks works better for some source. So maybe certain networks doesn't work too well with some sort of like source as a like some sort of app as source. Well, it's really difficult to say that sentence, but in a way, just like trying to measure whether there is any performance difference between the network in terms of whether they work better with certain source and whether they work not so well with certain source, and then purely based on like which conversion value you want to emphasize the most. Yeah, that's the general like easy to set up. You need 15 minutes max to set up dashboard, or 30 minutes. I might be exaggerating it, so maybe 30 minutes, but that's the yes, the the dashboard. And let me share again the slides. Yeah. So this is the time for Q&A. So if you have any questions, I'll look at the other screen to look at whether there's any questions and then can discuss. And if not, then we can also chat about things that you're interested in, like GrowForStack. If you want to know more about what is ETL, or you want to know how can you like use minimal resource to scale up your data engineering focus, or how can you help yourself even though you don't want to know anything about data engineering, but you want to know more. That's it.
Great, thanks, Mi-Ling. I've got a couple of questions here. If anyone's got any questions, leave them in the tab box. I've got a couple myself, if that's okay. So, one question is in terms of the kind of tech stack you've got running under all this. A lot of people said, say, MMPs would be obsolete. There's no point having them. But I noticed in quite a few of your flow charts, they still play quite a big role. You know, is that? Do you think they're still very important for Jack, or?
Yeah. So personally, I think it might be 50% in a way. Like for example, now you can get the data directly to your server. You can actually call Apple directly. In a way, it's actually a good news. The only thing like you'll need is to actually have all this conversion value set up. which you still kind of need a lot of work. And then if you don't have any MP, and in a way, you also need to do all the mapping by yourself. So for certain SKN network aspect, of course, this is like not making MP as the sole provider of the information, but for other information such as like spam aggregation or all the other like Android, like there are other aspects where you still need MP. So I think this is in a 50-50 situation right now.
Got it. And in terms of Jack's skills, I think sounds like his job's changing quite a bit. He was able to run campaigns and had a lot of that analysis done in the back end, and now he's having to get into Excel spreadsheets, a data studio, or so how does this change the role of a UA manager in 2021 and 2022, and what sort of skills are they going to need?
Yeah, sure. So personally, I think in a way, I guess it depends on people, right? So some people are really happy to do like more, let's say VBA. Some people are like crazy about Excel. Some people are not. Some people are crazy about learning more about visualization or like how to do self-sustained visualization, which is like you don't rely on any tool, you just write your own Python script and so on. But essentially, I think if you don't want to do any extra step, it's also perfectly fine. Then you probably need to like find GrowForStack or other provider where they can help you a bit in the setup. But overall, I think it's relatively easy to grasp up on. But if you don't want to like grasp up on this, it's also perfectly fine.
Great. And how are you finding your clients across different verticals adapting to this new paradigm? Are they finding it's okay and they're finding a way through? They can make some campaigns profitable, or is it very tough, or does it vary by vertical or by size of organization? What's the sort of mood out there? Yeah.
Yeah, so I personally, but again, this is my personal opinion. I think this is actually a great chance because essentially this is a really confusing word, and then people who actually have the first hands-on experience of knowing what's going on can actually scale much higher than other people in the iOS 15 world. In a way, like they basically can run much like they run like I don't know, like 1 year before everyone else starting running. So I think it's exciting, like for especially for people who can really want to do some hands-on stuff.
Right, great. So for those who get to grips with it and get on board with people like yourself or GrowForStack, they can get ahead of the game and maybe get an advantage. Got it.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, we're just about out of time, so I think we'll leave it there. And how can people, if they do want to follow up, we've got the slides here. So we've got info@GrowForStack. Yeah, and
essentially, or you can just send me an email or like find me on LinkedIn. I just signed up like using LinkedIn today, so if anyone wants to find me or like ask me questions, I'm super happy to help with anything regarding to like data visualization, ETL, and also data engineering.
Great. Okay, well, thanks so much, Mihan, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot for your time and have a nice day.